Sup guys, and welcome to my second video tutorial covering iOS and macOS application development. For those of you that have just now discovered my channel, this tutorial will be an introduction into developing a simple iOS application. However, for those of you that have already seen my prior introduction video, I will be building this tutorial based off of that prior knowledge that was learned from the last video. If for any reason you discover that some of the stuff in this video isn't quite clicking well, feel free to drop me a line or rewatch the prior introduction video before taking on this tutorial. While I feel like this tutorial will be pretty calm and pretty simple, if you don't have a prior background in programming knowledge, the prior tutorial that I made will be quite beneficial. Before I begin, I would like to apologize about my one-year siesta that I have taken from this channel. I was recently accepted into UT Austin to study computer science, and I've been quite busy this year. However, with the semester finally coming to an end, I'm ready to start cranking out some really great tutorials. So, let's begin. The first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to open Xcode. Make sure that you have Xcode 5.1. It doesn't really matter if the minor version is different, but make sure you have Xcode 5.1. If you don't have it, you can grab it from the macOS application store. So, to create a new project, go up here to File, New, Project. Now you are given two different options that you can select. You can decide to make an iOS or Mac OS X application. If for any reason in the future we decide to make Mac OS 10 applications, which I have planned, you will come over here to Application and choose Cocoa Application. However, for the time being, we will be creating an iOS application. It is also important to note that both of these applications, like as far as developing goes, are quite similar. So what you learn in one of these segments will be quite similar to what you will learn in OS 10. So let's begin. To start, select Single View Application and click Next. You may call this product anything you would like. I'm just going to call this Tutorial 2. Change your organization name to your name. Company identifier doesn't really matter what it is. Select the device you want to develop for. In this case, I'm just going to choose iPhone. And come up with a class prefix. A class prefix is something that should be 4 characters long, as specified by the Apple documentation, and it's just something unique to you. For my case, I guess I'll choose JRD for Jared. All this does is it distinguishes your objects and classes that you will make by prefixing them with a class prefix. The reason they do this is if any of you have familiarity with C++, this language does not have namespaces. If you don't understand anything I'm saying right now, that's perfectly okay. So click Next, pop it into a Git repository, or you can just select your developers folder. If you don't have one, just make a new folder, call it developers, just find a place to put your work. Alright, once that begins, it's going to create a couple things and you'll be off to the races. So to begin, you're going to notice you have a couple of things that Apple throws in here for you. And they throw in here what's called the storyboard, which is where you are supposed to design your application. They throw in a delegate, which receives pretty much callbacks from the operating system into your application. Like, did your app finish launching? Is it going to resign? Did it enter from the background? Meaning, did the person close out of your app without actually fully quitting it? Well, if not, you can actually have a way of running code by knowing that the application is back now in the foreground. Anyhow, and then you also have the view controller. The reason all these names may not sound entirely familiar is Apple uses something called MVC, which is known as Model View Controller. It's a design paradigm that is commonly used in computer science when designing graphic user interface applications. I will be explaining it in the future. However, you don't need it for this tutorial, so just disregard what I just said. Okay, so to begin, like I said, you have this blank application. You can quickly debug it by clicking the play button up at the top. Give it a couple seconds, the iOS simulator will build. Okay, and as you see, you have a blank application. There is nothing going on. You can close that, and we'll begin. So with this tutorial, I want to make something quite simple, something that's not going to go over the top and require us to use MVC, just for the sake of creating a quick tutorial. So what we're going to do is make sure you are over here in this right section. If you don't have it, you can enable it by clicking this banner on the right and it will enable it for you. Come down here and search for label. You will see that the label will pop up. It is as simple as clicking this and dragging it onto the display. You can line it up and lock it with one of these UI grid point handlers and go ahead and drop it. If you come over here to this, what looks like a scroll bar tool picker, if you click that, you can change the label. You can call it like hello world. And it's going to give you this ... thing because you ran off the scope of the text, obviously. And just put that back, and it's up there. But instead of calling it hello world, I'm just going to call it my app. Actually, let's call this, I'm doing this off the spot of my head, so let's just call this login application. What you're going to do, and let's position it. Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to put two UI text fields onto the display, along with a button, and if you tap it, it's going to say, hey, is your password correct, or is it not? This is not like super secure, so don't use this in your apps. This is just a quick tutorial showing you how things are done. So go ahead and search for text view. I'm sorry. Let's do a text field, not a text view. And go ahead and drag two of these onto the screen. Just line them up, make them look kind of okay. I'm not going for a beautiful design here. Alright. And just to make it look a little bit more decent, I'm going to drag two more labels into view. Go ahead and click it, and over here under text, make sure you're under the picker option. I'm going to change this to username, and I'm going to resize that. And over here, I'm going to change the name of this one to password. Alright, and as you see, we now have this. If you run the application, notice we've done no code so far. And we already have a nice little login form. It's pretty simple. You can't close out of it. You can't remove the keyboard or get rid of it. But that's fine for now. Okay, and then we will go down here, search for the word button, drag this nice UI button onto the screen, position it somewhere like, let's say on the bottom. You can call this login. Doesn't really matter what you name it, of course. And now you have the required elements to, have a nice little simple login screen. I would like to add one more thing. I'd like to add a label that tells you if you entered your password wrong or if you got it correct. So I'm going to go ahead and reposition this label. Change the color. Let's just say, let's find a color. As you can see, a lot of this is very graphical. There's not like, so far there's not much code that you've had to deal with. And for starters, let's make the label absolutely blank. And go back over here to password, the password text box, and if you look, you see that you have a couple of options you can choose from for this box. You can, set its opacity, where it is in the view, if the box is selected or not, highlighted, just stuff like that. It's pretty cool. All right. So what we're going to do now is, if you click over to your view controller, you will see that you have two things: view did load and did receive memory warning. You don't have to worry about either of these right now, because we're going to make a really simple application. First thing we're going to do is we're going to create a property. So in between your interface for your view controller, go ahead and type @property, non-atomic, strong, in a string, and then we should call this username. And let's do a similar one for the password. @ property, non-atomic, strong, and a string password. I said in my last tutorial that I was going to tell you guys what the differences are between these two eventually. That's not this tutorial. Basically, this has to do with multi-threading and thread safety, and this has to do how the pointer is attached to both of these strings. If you don't know what I said, that's fine. Completely skip over it. That is okay. So these two properties are going to hold the username and password that I'm going to define. And I decided to use a property just, to use more things in Objective-C. I'm going to immediately, after this view did load, I'm going to set those properties. And I'm going to do that by saying, well, I have to, one second, self.username. And I'm going to then make sure you have this as a method call, self.username set. So you have a couple of options here. You have set value, you have set string, you have string by appending string, you have tons of different things. String by appending string is actually perfect because we don't have anything in here, so we can just append right onto the end of it. And let's go ahead and create a username. We'll just call it Bob. And let's create a password. Secure password. Let's see what happens if I try to build. Okay, so everything's up and running. So far we think everything's good. Notice that if you click the two UI text fields, you can't click away and close the keyboard. Let's go ahead and fix that now. It's actually rather easy. So below these two methods, view did load, did receive memory warning. You can put this anywhere you want. It's really up to you, but let's go ahead and create a method. The method that I'm going to create comes from this UI view. So that's the reason it's going to get called. So for example, the method is void, and then I'm going to type touches. Notice I'm getting auto completion here. Touches began, ns set touches with event. I'm going to create this method. This method is going to fire whenever someone's finger or stylus or something touches the screen. This method will get called back and be sent to this view controller. Think of this view controller as the thing that controls the view, the thing you're seeing on the screen right now. Okay, so what you want to do now is, in order to get this keyboard to go away when you're done typing in text, just type self.view. This is saying me, I'm myself, and then the view that I contain, which is, you know what the view is, it's this thing. The view controller's this whole thing. The view is this thing though. It's kind of hard to see, but anything that's inside this white is the view, but the view controller is this whole element. So I'm saying, go to the view controller, go to that view, and then I'm going to type end editing. And it's asking for a Boolean, and a Boolean is just a yes or no, true or false statement. I'm going to say yes, and that's going to say I'm done editing. So if I hit play, I'm sure you guys know what's going to happen, but I want to show you. It's cool. Click a username box. If you click away, notice the keyboard goes away. It's that simple. One line of code did that. I mean, you had to attach the method, but it's, as you see, this stuff's really easy. Okay, so now we have this username and password. Let's make sure that they're actually outputting correctly. So let's go ahead and nslog right here. Make sure you type that correctly, and I'll explain why you have to type that. I'm going to say self.username. Let's see what happens. See if it actually logs it. And if we get the output we want. Notice we did not get the output we wanted. If you watched the last tutorial, you may be wondering, or maybe you already know why we're getting null right here. It's actually really simple. We never created the memory on the machine. Anything you create on a computer, memory has to be allocated with it. So this is actually very simple to do. You just need to say underscore username, or actually let's stick with what I'm doing. Self.username equals ns string alloc. What that method's going to do is it's going to create the required memory for an ns string. And then we're going to type init. And let's do that for the password. Self.password equals ns string alloc. Make sure you choose the right one. Hold on. And then init. So let's go ahead and fix that. Sorry. Cool. Now, this will work. It will allocate the memory, initialize the ns string, but notice I didn't get anything. I'm going to go ahead and run that again. Interesting, right? Well, it turns out I'm taking this thing string, appending it by this string, and while you can do that, it doesn't always play well, especially in the initializer. So instead of typing just init, we can type init with string. And what that'll do is that'll basically say, hey, I want to specify two things, like I want to create strings by default. Now, if you notice over here, you're getting these warnings, and it's saying, why are you saying alloc init with string? This is syntactically correct, but you actually can just type that instead. It used to be back in the day, you actually had to type this full thing if you wanted to create a string, but Apple made it towards this simple. You can literally just type @ before any string, and your variable's created. So right here I could type Bob again, and then I could type secure password. Okay. Let's find under navigate, view, the debug area, activate console. There it is. And you see Bob is outputting. It probably was outputting earlier when I said it wasn't. It was my console wasn't up. I apologize. Okay, so let's continue. Hopefully I didn't confuse anybody with that ns string alloc init thing. That's just what you have to do when you create objects. You have to allocate the memory, and then you have to initialize it. It just sets up the object. The only reason you don't have to do it for strings, like I said, is because Apple created the special identifier. If you put an @ before it, you won't have to. Alright? And oh, I skipped over one thing. When you do an ns log, this is how you log to the console. Notice we put the @ symbol before we type our message, right? That's because it's a string. Things are making sense. But you noticed one more thing. You noticed I typed %at, and then I typed comma self.username. This %at says I'm expecting an object. So if I also typed %at again, and then put another comma, and type self.password, I am going to output two objects, Bob and secure password. There's not going to be a space between them. They're going to kind of collide together, but that's cool. Gotta wait for the app. Right there, Bob secure password. Just like I said. So that's how you log things. So if you are confused or want to see what something holds, you can just do that. Pretty simple. So let's go ahead, and now that this stuff's initialized, oh yeah, I want to show you another thing that I want to fix. Notice if I type in something for the username, we see text, but if I type in something for the password, I'm also getting the text. Well, I don't want to see that. When someone types in their password, I want it to show those little stars or those circles. I don't want people to be able to see the password I'm entering. This is actually very simple to do. In your view.load, you can literally just grab a hold of the text field, and you can do that by typing self. The name of the text field. Now, this is the thing. What is the name of the text field? We dragged it onto our storyboard, but how does our code know where to go? We didn't give this a name. We didn't do anything with it, right? Well, in order to control these elements, we have to link them up. This gets kind of cool. Come over here to the butler, It's called the Assistant Editor. Click that, and your screen's going to now split. What you should do is you should grab the element that you want, and then you can either right-click or hold down Control, click the element, and as you're doing that, you can drag it under interface. Doesn't matter where you drop it. I prefer to do it under here. Let go, and you're good. Now you just need to give it a name. I'm going to call it username text field. And let's do the same with the password. Hold down Control, or you can right-click, click the element, drag it, let go, and type password text field. It's also kind of cool to note that these are weak while my properties are strong. You can do research on that or think about it, but when we eventually cover the difference between strong and weak pointers, I will explain that. But for the time being, come down here and we can now, we should fill something in now that we have access to these text fields. So we can type self.passwordTextField.secureTextEntry and set that equal to yes. What that's going to do is when you run the application, when a user types in their password, they will now see the spherical elements or asterisks. So let's go ahead and run the app. And you notice you type something in. Come over here to password. It's doing the famous shows you the last character and then hides everything else type deal. And if you click away from the screen, your password, the keyboard will go away. So we got something that's working. It's working okay. Also, let's go ahead and drag this higher. It wasn't showing because it's currently set for a iPhone 4-inch, the 4-inch instead of the 3.5-inch screen. You can select this and it'll shrink it to the 3.5-inch. It's just this button down here. And eventually I'll teach you guys what's called auto layout, and we can design apps all in Storyboard basically to accommodate many different screen sizes. That'll be for a different tutorial, and it'll be probably quite a long tutorial, but we'll cover it really thoroughly. So, all right, now that login's here, let's create an outlet for it as well. Actually, we don't need an outlet for it. We don't need to change anything. An outlet is only when you need to change something about that element. Instead, we need what's called an action. An action means when something happens to that element, we need to run code. The way we can do this, same method, hold down Control, drag, and instead of being up here in interface, create a new method down here. Doesn't matter where you do it. Actually, let's do it up here. I like this better. And call it login was pressed. Press connect. And this will get called whenever you hit the login button. Pretty cool. Let's do one more thing. Do you remember this text field? It's invisible that we created. If you didn't create it, you can just create it. It's just a label. But go ahead and click it. Like I said, it's invisible. Hold down Control, drag it, and let's create an outlet for it. We'll call this notification label. Okay. Now what we're going to do is we're going to do the final step. And that is to compare and see if the string that is in this text field is equal to the property. It's not too hard to do this, actually. It's just an if statement. And inside the if statement, all we have to do is specify the username. We can say self.username. And we can say, well, actually, you shouldn't compare strings. So what we should do is look up a thing on the documentation that tells us how do we compare strings in Objective-C. And I could just show you, but it's better to use documentation because this is a big library, and the quicker you learn how to use documentation, the better. So let's go ahead and type up how to compare NS strings in, iOS. Anything that says Stack Overflow should be a really good reference to you. It's what a lot of computer scientists and programmers use, and looks like this is the method right here, is equal to string. You can click it, gives you a beautiful link to the Apple documentation telling you how do we use this, and gives you all the methods you can use. It's lovely. Apple has done a great job with their documentation, and you should use it. So it's pretty simple. We're just going to say is equal to string. And so if we come back over here, I can say username. Well, it's a method, so you're going to have to put those little braces. Username. Oh, self. I apologize. Self.username is equal to string, and now we get to compare it to a string. And the string that we want is inside this UI text field. We can't just say UI text field because that's not a string. That's a UI text field. So we have to get the string from it. And let's see what that would be. Username text field. Oh, self.username text field. I'm going to go ahead and switch out of butler mode so it's bigger. And I'm going to go back to the view controller. Okay. Self.username text field. Let's see. Do they have get? They have value for key, string, label. What could we use? We need to grab the label, whatever it's holding, right? You can either go to the documentation to find this, or you can click this. See, they call it a text. That may not be good enough for us. So let's see. Is it called a text? Oh, it is. What do you know? So you are now comparing the username that you created up here as a property with the text field, the text that's actually in that text field. Okay? And if they're equal, I'm going to nslog success. Wahaha. And we're going to take this label, this notification label, self, I keep doing that, self.notification label. Let's see, is there a set text? No, there is. And we're going to type, congratulations, you have logged in. Even though you haven't logged in, it's just, it's saying it works. So that's always cool. And then we could say else. We could nslog a failure, failure. And we could set self.notification label set text. Your username or password was incorrect. Now, at the moment, we are only comparing is the username equal to the text field string. So we need to compare both, and they both need to be correct, or else we can't proceed. So let's just create what's called a bool. A bool is known as a primitive. You don't really need to know what that is. All you need to know is it's like an integer, but it's not a class. It's a yes or no value, and you don't have to alloc init it. You don't have to create a property for it. You just say bool. And let's just say is users equal. And I'll just set this, I'll copy this code right here. Set that there. And let's do another bool for is password equal. It's just going to be self.password is equal to string self.password text field text. Let's get a brace. Okay, cool. Now we have these two booleans. We could have just typed them in this if statement, but I like to keep my if statements clean. So is the users equal? And notice it's two and symbols. That's a logical notation. If you do one and symbol, you're doing something completely different, and you won't be happy with the results. So do two and symbols, and everything will work. So is users equal and is passwords equal? Okay, let's see what happens. Oh, here we go. Let's hit login immediately. Failure. Username and password was ... Let's go ahead and quickly fix that. Go to the storyboard, click the label. Let's reduce the system font to like 11. That's cool. It'll be super small. And let's relaunch. You just click the username field and you can change it. I went a little quick there. Just click the username field and click the picker and change the font to 11 size. And then go ahead and run. And if you hit login, you're going to notice down here it's going to log out failure. Your username or password was incorrect. So let's go. We know the username is Bob. I'm having difficulties remembering what the password was. Secure PW, I believe. hey look, congrats, we logged in. So this is pretty cool. We have a nice little app here. It's amazing, ready to put it on the App Store. Not quite, but it's something simple. I actually have an app that will be released soon on the App Store called Dropped. I'll let you guys know when it comes out. It's going to be free. It's going to be an online game you can play with other people. It's like a mixture of like a Tetris and a Word game. It'll be kind of cool. Thank you for joining me. This tutorial went way longer than it should have, but hopefully I went at a good pace for people that are new to this stuff, and that's my goal. My goal is to help normal people that don't really know much about programming. I want to teach them how to do this stuff, and then once they can make some cool things, then we'll build and we'll teach you the fundamentals and foundations of what you really need to know. In the meantime, thank you for joining me on this tutorial, and in the next one, we'll work on cooler stuff, and I will teach you the programming paradigm called Model View Controller. Thank you guys.